I still can't forget what I saw that day. When I close my eyes, it comes back sharp and clear. My son's knees hitting the hardwood floor. My name is Dorothy Callahan. 68 years old. Born and raised in a small fishing town on the Oregon coast. I spent most of my life running a small seafood stall at the Saturday market. Raising my son on my own after my husband passed. I thought I was tough. I thought I had seen everything life could throw at a woman. But that one afternoon turned everything I believed upside down. It was last October. I drove over to visit my son Michael at his house in town. I hadn't called ahead. I had a jar of homemade apple butter and a bag of smoked salmon. I'd put up myself, and I just wanted to drop it off. The front door was slightly open. I was about to knock when I heard Michael's voice from inside. Low and serious. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner. I am truly, deeply sorry for what my family did to yours. I stopped breathing. I looked through the gap in the door. My son was on both knees on the living room floor, head bowed in front of his wife, Rachel. Rachel stood above him, still, watching him without a word. I stepped back from the door. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. What is she doing to my son? What kind of woman makes a grown man kneel on the floor of his own house? I drove home without knocking. My hands didn't stop shaking the whole way back. Rachel Henson, 29, from a small town about 40 minutes east of us. Quiet, careful with her words. And always watching people just a beat longer than felt comfortable. I had noticed it from the first time Michael brought her home. I told myself it was nothing. Michael loved her, so I let it go. But no, I wasn't letting anything go. I started asking around quietly. People at the farmer's market. Old neighbors, anyone who might know the Henson family. Nobody seemed to know much. They weren't from town. Then one afternoon, Ruth, who runs the bait and tackle shop on the edge of the harbor, flagged me down. Ruth is 70-something, sharp as a tack, and has never once told me a lie in 30 years of knowing her. Dorothy, Rachel's maiden name is Henson, right? Her dad wasn't Jim Henson. Was he? The one who had the cold storage warehouse out on Route 9? My stomach dropped. What happened to them? Ruth looked at me steady. Lost everything. About 15 years ago, something went wrong with a distribution contract. Whole business collapsed overnight. Jim had a heart attack not long after. Didn't make it. I drove home with that sitting on my chest like a stone. Cold storage. Distribution contract. 15 years ago, my husband, Gerald Callahan, had been in seafood distribution back then. He had several warehouse contracts running at once. I never paid much attention to the business side of things. What I knew was that those were the years we finally stopped struggling. The years we paid off the house. That night I went through every box in the garage. Gerald had been a man who kept records of everything. After he died, I couldn't bring myself to throw it all out. 16 boxes of old files, cassette tapes, folders, notebooks, still stacked in the back corner of the garage. Third box I opened, I found an old handheld recorder. And 2 tapes beside it. I sat there a long time before I pressed play. Gerald's voice came through the static. We need to cut the Henson warehouse loose. Pull our inventory, reroute everything through the Medford facility. Once we move our volume out, they won't have enough to keep the doors open. That location is ours if we move fast enough. Another voice, someone I didn't recognize. Gerald, the Hensons put everything into that contract. If you pull out, they're done. You know that, right? Gerald's voice again. That's why I said move fast. We've been waiting long enough. I set the recorder down on the garage floor. And didn't pick it up for a long time. Gerald had done it deliberately. He had waited until the Henson family was fully dependent on that contract. Then pulled it out from under them. Jim Henson's business had collapsed because of us. Jim Henson had died because of us. And I had lived in this house. I had sent Michael to college. I had eaten and slept and grown old in comfort built on someone else's ruin. I called Michael the next morning. Michael, I found your father's old recorder in the garage. He was quiet for a moment. How much did you hear? Enough. How long have you known? Another long pause. Before we got engaged. Rachel's mom told me. I went and looked into it myself to be sure. When I confirmed it, I told Rachel I understood if she couldn't be with me. She said she chose me. But I told her I would spend my life making it right. I kept meaning to tell you, Mom. I just didn't know how to start. I sat at the kitchen table and cried until there was nothing left. I was furious at Gerald. I was heartbroken for Michael. And I could not look at myself in the mirror. The following week I called Ruth and apologized for every careless word I had ever said about Rachel's family. Then I sat down and transferred every dollar from the savings account Gerald had left me, the one I had been too superstitious to touch, and signed it over to Michael. I don't know if this is part of what your father took from them or not. But I can't keep it. You decide what to do with it. Michael said it wasn't about the money. I told him it was about me. Then I drove to Michael's house. I knocked this time. I had brought a pair of gloves I had been knitting since September. Dark navy wool. I didn't have anything else that felt right to offer. Rachel opened the door. She looked at me without anger and without warmth. Just steady. I looked her in the eye. I was wrong about you from the beginning. I treated you badly and I looked for reasons to push you out. And the bigger truth is that my husband hurt your family in a way that I benefited from my whole life without knowing it. I am sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. Rachel looked at the gloves in my hands. She reached out and took them. Come inside. That was all she said. She made chamomile tea. We sat at her kitchen table without talking much. The tea was warm and the room was quiet. I don't know if forgiveness is coming. Maybe it never fully does. But she opened the door. And she let me sit at her table. And for now, that is where things begin. 3 months later, a small package arrived at my house. Inside was a pair of hand-knitted gloves. Dark navy. The same color as the ones I had given her. No note. I put them on and sat by the window. They were a little big. But they were warm. And I thought, maybe that's enough to start.